Hey, what's up, Blazer fans? Welcome to We Have a Take the What podcast. I am Tara Bowen Biggs, joined as always by Rose Harding. Hello, Rose.
Hi, Tara. How are you doing this morning?
Doing pretty good. Glad to be talking basketball. We took a week off last week. Feels like it was a pretty well-timed week off, also, as far as it goes
Yeah.
with what's going on with the team right now.
Yeah, it's been a rough couple of weeks of basketball for us, like severely depleted rosters. And against like kind of, well, okay, so I would say some of them are hard opponents, but some of them were not, and they were still hard games all the same. But it was a road trip, and road trips are tough.
Yeah, it's a road trip and it's weird scheduling because of the rescheduling because of the Emirates Cup, which as long as our team is not in it, I could care less about. But of course, it's the most important thing in the world before my team got eliminated.
Yeah.
Or the Emirates
Yeah. Is
Airlines Cup. Sorry.
that what it's called? Emirate Airlines. Okay.
Well, because remember I called it US Emirates and you were like, it's actually the airline, it's not the country.
Oh yeah. 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 Well, I think you said United Arab Emirates, and I was like, that's a place.
Oh,
But it's,
yeah.
I think they do call themselves just Emirates, but it's Emirates Airlines. Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know if I did not watch the game last night because I had a choir concert, but I did hear that another team has finally defeated the team that the Blazers defeated. That the Spurs beat OKC.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's right. And they had Wemby, or they
Yeah,
didn't have
they got
Wemby.
Wemby back.
They got Wemby back. Yeah.
Yeah. I Between the topic that we covered this week, which we'll get into in a minute, and just like last night and just I'm kind of worrying I'm starting to become slightly a Spurs fan, which is not where I ever expected that I might be. So I'm a little worried.
Yeah. I mean, we do have a lot of guys on our team that have traveled through the Spurs organization at one point or another. Um, but I will say, like, the randomness gods have smiled upon the Spurs many, many, many times as far as like getting picks, as far, like as far as guys that they hoped being good turning out to be good. Like it's easy to be a fan of someone who's so lucky in life.
Yeah, and I guess to me it's kind of like what they do with that and how they act about it, unlike
Mm,
certain other teams who are also granted fortune again and again and again, and who maybe are in like the Bay Area and are a little bit more they do different things with their good fortune.
yeah. I was thinking the Pelicans have had similar fortune, like, oh, in the last like decade or so, in terms of like being able to get like number one picks, for instance.
Yeah, that's true.
And and
That's
they
a
haven't
great
always
point.
they have not always had good luck with those.
That is a great point. They had good luck with the Blazers recently, but overall,
Yeah.
so
And I was just thinking they had both Anthony Davis and they had Zion and like
yeah,
what?
yeah, that's
I mean, they
true.
did just beat us, so
Okay, well, we talked about starting off with the vibe check, and we've already sort of crossed into the vibe check. So let's start. Tell me how are you feeling? What do you think the vibes are? Go with it.
I'm trying to not like get too deep in my feelings right now. Like the team is really hurt. Like they're really banged up. I think that illness also like traveled through the team for a little bit because there were a couple guys that Donovan and Jeremy at least that both missed a game due to illness. And you know, I it's a hard season to be shorthanded because between illnesses, between like, the bumps and scrapes, guys who miss like one game here, one game there, we also have some like significant injuries on our roster. Like even the guys who are healthy enough to play, I think are probably like super tired. You can tell. I don't know if it's like, as a parent to you, but like when I look at those guys playing, even in the second or third quarter, they look exhausted already. And so I'm trying not to read too much into like some of these losses, especially since we're in the hardest part of the schedule this at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I mean, all those misses where you can just tell their arms are tired and
And their
like the
legs.
amount of like I believe that falling down isn't really an indication of like Like I think falling down is smart. I think a lot of these guys fall down in a smart way to avoid injury. I don't so and when Denny spends a lot of time on the floor, I think that's by design because he's protecting himself and he's, careful about how he falls so that he doesn't like have other random injuries. But still he plays so hard and he like goes up against so many guys who are so strong every night. Like I just don't know how he like gets up every day and shows up and plays this hard every night. It's really amazing phenomenon to watch.
Well, yeah, and when he like goes that hard, he falls that hard. He runs fast, he goes hard to the basket, and when he falls down, like you're hitting like first of all, he's like 6'10", and
Mhm.
then he's hitting the floor at like kind of a
Hard.
yeah, like hard at a top speed, and that is hard on your body over time.
Yeah, even if it's like you're doing smart falls, it's
Hmm.
still a fall. It's still hitting something. It's still got to be producing bruises somewhere.
Did you see that video that the Blazers posted? I think it was this last week of Jeremy Grant practicing like laying down and getting up in like the most economic way.
Oh, yes.
And it was like, oh, this makes perfect sense to me that these guys practice this because their body needs to know how to do that without them thinking about it. So they roll around on the ground and they try to do it with like great economy and probably in the safest possible way for a guy who's very tall. Because you might have to get up off the ground, the whistle's not going to blow, play is not going to stop. You're going to have to get up off the ground and hit the ground running. And you could see him practicing that. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting.
And it is also so relatable as a woman over 55. That's what your doctor wants to know. Like, how fast can you get up if you fall? I've
Oh my
literally been
gosh.
tested for that by a trainer.
That's so funny. I didn't know that they could test you for that.
Well, they just like when you're a woman of a certain age and you go into like, start new routines or whatever, they do some baseline and some of them are like how like getting up from the floor, getting up from a chair because as you advance in age and your bones get weaker, they want to make sure that you're working all those muscles to protect yourself. But I'm now putting it together that like what you were just saying, like of course NBA players have to go through that. I wonder who we could talk to about that. Because of like all the
Mm.
body mechanics of falling down, the body mechanics of getting up, like like we don't usually see videos like like you said that they just posted of people working on things like that, and I would love to learn more detail about that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some exercise and movement science folks out there who do that kind of work or like train that type of work, that type of work for people. But um, it is interesting to think about all of those kind of small things where you don't pre where you prepare to play in a game, but you're not necessarily working on the like direct skills that people think about, shooting, guarding, lateral speed, jumping, whatever. Like this is like getting up off the ground after you've fallen down because you're definitely going to fall down at some point.
Yes. So who even has been playing regular? We've got Denny, Jeremy's been playing a lot. He's missed here and there, but I don't know if that he's missed in the last week. We had a strong section of no centers. So not only does the team have no point guards, they're also playing no centers. I mean, centers are for like people who like to take the easy route, I guess.
Well, we did have WAP available. He would
Oh,
play
that's
like
right.
some minutes sparingly, but as most people know, like, WAP is like he can play the center position, but he also is kind of a stretch five, so he plays on the perimeter.
Yeah.
Weirdly, though, I was like, oh, he's very valuable because we don't have that many shooters.
Yeah, and he has been shooting well. Like he's one that if he gets it on the perimeter, I'm like, okay, I'm cool. Go.
Yeah, take that
Shoot it.
shot. I'm not going to feel bad about it ever.
Yeah, yeah. For people who follow me on Blue Sky, they know I do every game. I do the number of dunks that the Blazers got and trend compared to other years, the Blazers are higher than they have been in the past, but in that Pelicans game where I think WAP was the only true center, um the Blazers had 5 dunks and the Pelicans had 12. And I was like,
Oh,
that pretty much tells the story of where the Blazers are right now.
yeah.
Ouch.
It's it's been tough out there and like we've been putting out some of these like five forward lineups
Hmm.
And like I don't like I I get it, positionless basketball, yada yada yada, but it doesn't change the fact that the only one out there at times that can really handle the ball for like at volume is Deni.
Mhm.
That's like probably bad for our team. Like
Yeah, yeah, for a number of reasons. But so according to so today is what is it, Sunday before noon, and it sounds like the Blazers are gonna possibly get Donovan and Rob back today. I am crossing my fingers and toes and everything that happens to just because I just it'll give a little relief to these guys who are trying to like cover positions that they don't normally play.
yeah, I was actually really curious why we hadn't had Rob. I don't think I recall them saying anything was wrong with him. And like typically when we've lost when we've had him without like any kind of thing that they're managing, was like on back to backs. But they
Mhm.
haven't had back to backs for like a week.
Did he
And
have an injury or an illness? Okay, I'm
I
on
don't know.
basketball reference and I'm looking at the.
I guess we had a back to back December 2nd and December 3rd, and that was the last back to back. But we haven't had him for a while.
So on, yeah, no, you're right. But I think mixed in there was also illness because he's listed for yesterday, Saturday, December 13th. He's day to day with illness.
Okay.
So I think there's a mixture of not playing back to backs, although I believe didn't oh he may have played anyway, we're not gonna spend the time for me looking up all of that. But I think yeah, illness is in there probably also with a mixture of rest.
Yeah. I mean,
But
we know
wouldn't
that
be
like
great.
Donovan missed a game, I think, because of illness.
Mhm.
One or two games, I think. Jeremy, I think, missed an illness. Like, clearly, it's respiratory virus season and it's making the rounds.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Um, so
And
it
that pretty much
is
happens the beginning of every season. As soon as they go out on the road, somebody picks up something and then they all get sick. And they've pretty much been on the road most of the last 2.5 months.
also, and it hurts so much more when you have these significant injuries that we're trying to like cobble lineups together around. We 0 point guards,
Mhm.
Matisse is out. Um, we have a lot of guys that are not expected to play for at least a few weeks. So, like the illness bug really hurts that much more when you barely have like viable lineups to choose from.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot made about them having like a bunch of time off and like having their first Tiago splitter practice, which is great because like prior they'd just been on the road so much they could do like walkthroughs, but they couldn't really do actual practices. But now because of this sort of this cup break, they actually had a chance for practice. I don't know about you, but I actually get scared every time they have more than a single day off because I feel like if they have 2 days off, it goes right back to the beginning. And I'm like, I know it's not fair and it would be terrible for them physically, but as a fan, I am much easier in my feelings when they're playing every other night just regularly because if they get that extra day, I'm like, I don't know what happened. It's like they forgot everything that they knew.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know what it is about that, but I do think you're right that there's something about like a regular rhythm that guys can rely on and stay engaged. But like, I can also imagine the rest being good, but also guys, because they're like, so the guys who are healthy enough to play are playing so much that they probably disengage from basketball during that time, which isn't always good for like when you come back.
Hmm.
But they're also like, like, how do you balance that, right? The exhaustion and like staying engaged and ready to play when it's time to play again. Like, I don't really know how they do it. I'm sure that these guys all practice doing it throughout the season, and it's still something they have to work on,
Yeah. And
especially because it's a young team.
totally. And I know that like I said, like for the players, it's better that they are getting rest, but as a fan, it's hard to watch. And I was actually just looking back at the who's actually been playing, and it's a lot of the younger guys because it's some of the older guys are
Yeah.
the ones who are out. And to get back to what your point was about routine, these guys are learning like they're still getting solid in their NBA routines, even if they've been in the league for a few years, they're still like getting that down. And
Mhm.
so maybe that's what seems disruptive from an outsider perspective when they have like an extra day off.
Yeah.
But did you see how many of them showed up to the remix game?
I
I thought that was
did.
cool.
That is really cool, and I'm so glad that these guys are showing up to support the remix when they're able. I know that the schedules don't always line up so that they can do that, and I'm sure that they would be there more, but it's nice when they have like a couple days off and it aligns with um the G League schedule that they show up and cheer those guys on. I especially like we have a lot like right now we're seeing a lot of our two-way guys. And like quite frankly, the two-way guys don't feel like two-way guys because when's the last time those guys, have they even played with the remix this year? Like CD and Caleb?
I don't know that they have. They probably haven't had time unless it was over this break. Can you hear my husband cutting the Christmas tree outside my window?
No, no, I
Okay.
cannot.
It seems like every week at this time he decides to run outside and do some yard work. But okay. I'm glad you can't hear it. He went and got a Christmas tree and from the forest and it's like 15 feet tall. And I was like, the way he like kind of put it in front of the house. And I was like, actually, can we just put it right there? It looks so great outside of our house and we won't have to chop it down. And we'll actually or we won't have to like, cut the top off or the bottom off. And we'll actually have room in our living room. So he's out there actually setting up the Christmas tree outside because I asked him to.
That's very sweet. And also a lot of work to have because are you gonna put lights on it?
Yeah, we're just gonna put lights on it.
Yeah, not like decorations.
No, no. But like we have a very small living room and we have people over. It's like the tree and then everybody just like huddled up. So I'm
Yeah,
like,
we
be
have a
great.
small living room too, and we have a spot where our tree normally lives, but two things are happening right now. We have a puppy and she has her own needs. And so now we have two dog crates out there. And also she wants to eat the tree. And so there's literally like a cardboard cut around and like around the whole bottom of the tree so that she doesn't get in there. So I don't, maybe we should put ours in I guess what I'm saying, maybe we should put ours in the front yard too. So that
Be
we have more.
a whole new trend. It's like not playing point guards and centers and putting your Christmas tree outside. Rip City is on the front of all of these cool trends.
That's true. We are. Look at us go. And what has it brought us? Not a great record up to this point in the season, but honestly, for the hardest part of the season and as banged up as we've been, I'm not unhappy at all.
Yes, to me, I am not unhappy, but I'm starting to slide into depression,
Which
which
is
is different
different.
from being unhappy, right? Because
Yeah,
we've seen some stuff. We've felt like we actually, even though the players that are playing right now might not be like the main core or only some of them are, like we can see the vision of what the front office has been trying to do and what the coaching staff is trying to do. They're trying to find strong, athletic, really fast, just like tenacious defenders and put together enough offense so that they can like stay in the game. Like I see the blueprint, so that is
mm,
good. However, because nobody can actually who are going to be playing those key roles is physically capable of playing right now, it's just like this long waiting game and I'm getting tired of waiting. I'm starting to get like really bummed that we're not able to see it. So I hope we get to see some guys play soon because I'm having a hard time. My vibes are like low in that there's so much promise. And in the past
mm.
they were low just because it was like, oh God, we got to just wait it out until like we know what's gonna happen. And like we got there and then crash. We just have to wait again. And I'm just getting impatient, I guess.
I was thinking about so like I agree with you. It's easy to like get to the place where you're like I'm not unhappy, but also it's a little depressing because it's just a slog game after game with so few guys available and so little opportunity to see what they could be because right now they're just trying to keep the lights on. They're not
Mhm.
trying to do stuff for like the for growth, I think, and in the way that they would be if they had their full roster available. Um, but I was trying to think about it. I was like, at this point last year, if we were playing like this, I would have been thrilled because we were just getting like the number of minutes that were garbage minutes were so numerous every game. Like on average, there were so many garbage minutes because we were out of the game by the fourth quarter. And a lot of these games, even though they like those losses felt bad, we've been able to play the starters toward the end and think maybe we could bring it back. And there's been times where we've gotten close.
Hmm. They put a little run in here, they put a little run in there, but they put a little bigger run in. They can't ultimately carry it across the finish line, but like they don't give up. And I'm worried about those guys who are not giving up that they're also going to get hurt. And then
Mm.
it's just going to be even. I'm so worried about Deni and Jeremy too, I guess, getting
Toumani.
hurt and Toumani. I'm so worried
Yeah.
about them getting hurt that I just like want other guys to get better so that I can worry less about that.
Those three guys right there are the guys that look very tired to
Hmm.
me. And I'm like by the way that how by the way they've been playing and how hard some of those guys play, like Toumani and Deni play hard. Like
Hmm.
they play hard both ways. They must be exhausted.
Yeah.
Like they look exhausted, they look banged up. Like I want them to be able to like I mean, I know that we're going to play them a lot regardless of who's available, but like I don't want them to have to play like 38 minutes every game.
Hmm.
Like that's just too much. That's just too much. And I know that we're trying to manage Shaden, like Shaden was coming back from injury, and I worry about whether he's playing too much. Like
Hmm.
there's so many things where I'm like, I hope that these injuries don't set us back because as soon as we get the guys who are injured back, that these other guys that have been playing this whole way are also now injured.
Yes, totally. Yeah, I'm afraid. You know what? I want to be. I want the team to be in a place where, maybe their record isn't that great, but our biggest concern is why can't Chris Murray shoot just a little better? You know? Like
Yeah.
that's what I want to talk about. I would rather be talking about Chris Murray, like so good, so solid on defense, knows exactly where he's supposed to be, what he's supposed to do, just can't score. Like I want to talk about that. Not like, oh, they've another night where they only have 8 players who can play, or, 9 players that can suit up.
I was just
But,
thinking, like, I was like, what it would be like if we didn't have like Denny or Tumani on this team or Jeremy on this team. And it's wild because last year everybody was like, trade Jeremy, get him out of here. Like, where would we be without Jeremy Grant this season?
no kidding. No kidding. Yeah, and it's also tough, I think, because it's nothing that anybody has any control over. Like
No.
like what the front office could what? Trade an injured player for a healthy player? Is that really what we want? The front office could have not traded players that they did trade. Is that really what we want? It's just so all out of anybody's hands. We just have to wait it out, and we've just been waiting things out for a really long time, and it just looked like it was closer.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just not anybody's fault, you know?
Mhm.
It's not anybody's fault. It's the circumstances. You don't like like if I work in a front office and I definitely don't, and I'm so glad I don't, but like if I worked in a front office, I would not be like too worried about this month or next month if I had a bigger, grander long-term plan for
Yeah.
like the next 2 years. Like you don't like freak out because everybody's sick and injured right now, especially where like I mean some of these injuries are significant, but they're like 2 to 3 months that you're going to get some of these guys back, not like a year.
Yeah.
You know, we have one guy on our roster that needs a year, and that's Dame, and we got him knowing that. And everybody else just needs a few months. And
Yes.
then guess what? They're going to come back, and it's going to be the easy part of the season. Easier.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And we had it for a little bit and it was really fun. And so we'll get back there. So yeah, we don't want to dwell on that. We actually have something, positive to think about or to talk about for the rest of the unless do you want to add anything about vibes, how you're feeling, or the team?
No, I just wanted to say that like I've heard as you've heard, we're probably getting Rob and Donovan back today for this evening's game against the team from the Bay. FYI, Tara, just so you can
Okay, I
mentally
have to
prepare
tell you
yourself.
something really funny before you finish. I miss all of that information because I have their name blocked from all of my social media feeds. So like any of the information I had to like totally go hunting for, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's why I don't know this because anything that has to do with any game against them is blocked." Sorry.
That's hilarious. Even well, anyway, I won't even go into it, but like, yes, that's definitely who we're playing today. So now you know. I don't know who's available. I don't read about that team unless it's against my will. unless somebody forces me to.
We refuse
Um,
to give them life by talking or thinking about them.
but remember, they've given us 2 wins this season. So, and we are getting Rob and Donovan back, so we can be maybe a tiny bit optimistic. I mean, it's hard to beat any team too many times without them being able to beat you at least once, but like, I don't know, we've done it twice already this season, and we were not always healthy when we did it. So,
Who's to say?
who's to say? Um, so anyway, we might be giving Rob and Donovan back both this evening, which would be huge because we haven't had any centers available. Um, I saw that Matisse and Drew are getting close, but they're not there yet, and Scoot is not yet cleared for full contact. But I don't know. It's December 14th. Do you think we see them before the end of the year?
I mean,
Any of
I've
them?
been just thinking January just to protect my heart. If they come back before January, that would be amazing. But I'm just not even counting on it. Although they still have like today, and then there's like another like pretty sizable break before they play on the 18th, and then things get back into that regular routine. So maybe with
Hmm.
this little bit of extra rest and recovery time, maybe we could be getting some of those guys back. I'm so excited to see Donovan back just because I think he is in such a great position to make so many strides this season. And like every game he loses is just like one more game where he can't break out. And I just know it's coming. And I'm excited to watch it. And I just love the edge that he brings to the games. And
Hmm.
like, I don't know what the vibes are with the team right now. I'm very curious because they've recently had a couple of tough big losses, not as
Hmm.
big as they've had in the past, but that
Yeah.
may have been hard on them. I know earlier maybe like a month ago is when they had like their team meeting. I think they had a player, I'm not sure if they had a player only meeting, but they had like a team meeting. I read recently an article, ooh, was it Joe Freeman about communication?
Yeah, the
Um,
one about the lack of communication.
yes,
Yes.
yes. And I saw that. So Joe, I think the part of the point was, of course, like their leaders are all on the bench. And so the guys who are playing, sorry, not all of their leaders on the bench, a lot of their leaders and a lot of their vocal communicators are out with injury right now. And so the rest of them are trying to step up and learn how to fill that role. And it's been difficult just because the combination of guys that are active right now are less communicative than some of the other guys who are not out there. So I think Donovan coming back is going to be big. And as long as I mean, I think and Toumani like has said, I think he's in so many articles. He's so willing to talk. I love his willingness
Hmm.
to talk. And so, he talked about how he's working on it. But like Matisse is a big communicator, Rob is a big communicator. So I think getting Rob is also gonna help a lot. And then whenever Matisse
Hmm.
comes back, I think that'll help too.
Yeah, it's tough out there right now. And the guys who who are on this team who might otherwise communicate are probably pretty tired.
Yes.
And they're like, that's like one more thing for them to have to think about is, helping direct traffic out there.
Yeah.
Sometimes, when we get to the end of the game and we're within striking distance, I look at them and I'm like, you're so tired.
Yeah. The
Like,
only thing
I
they're
don't know
not
if you
doing
have
like is
any.
rubbing their eyes. Like, right? That's like as a parent, like your big tail is like when they're pulling their ears and rubbing their eyes. And like I look up there sometimes and I'm like, any minute Shaden's gonna start tugging on his ear. Like rubbing his eyes.
Yeah, that's right. Or like kids like just start to like touch their clothes.
Yeah.
I
Totally.
al- I like Jokic is like my like number one person that I like to watch when he gets tired because he is a giant toddler. He's got
Yeah.
giant toddler hair, and he tugs at his jersey and he like tugs
Yeah.
his shorts, and I'm like, somebody get that kid down for a nap. He needs one.
Get him in his PJs. He wants to put his PJs on.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm hope we get those guys back because I also want these guys who have been playing to get some more rest.
Yeah.
And and then they don't have to disengage from the game like on off days if they don't want to because they haven't completely run out of steam because they're playing so many minutes. Um did you see that Blake Wesley went to back to the basket? He like the back to the basket posted a picture of him in the shop and I was like, and the one thing I noticed, I was like, oh look, he's still in a walking boot.
Yeah.
Not close.
Blake Wesley has been all over town. I really
Hmm.
like Blake Wesley's willingness to just like embrace where he is. And if I
Yeah.
started because we were preparing to talk about to do a deep dive on him before he got injured, so we decided to wait until after he comes back. But before we made that decision, I like followed his family on social media, and his family is like so super supportive, and like they like post about him all the time. And you can tell they're like just super proud of him and how he's like they're how he's handling his like injury, his setback that he's going
Hmm.
through. And I like that he's thrown himself into the local community because what else are
Yeah,
you
it's
gonna do,
great.
right?
Yeah. And at least he's getting out and like doing stuff because
Yeah,
like when you're injured, sometimes you might
yeah.
just stay home and get depressed.
Right. And he went to like they had the Javelina pop-up, which was it's the native restaurant over, it's right by my house actually. And they had one of those when the Blazers come and they give away like free food, and they have and like Wesley went there, and he
Hmm.
was at that event, and he's been to a couple local businesses. So it's yeah, it's good to see him out
It's
and
super
about.
cool.
But we're not talking about him today.
Yeah.
We will talk about him in the future. Today we are going to be talking about Sidy Cissoko, and we were talking about this before we got on there. Tough to find information about Sidy
Whew.
Cissoko.
I don't know what the press has been doing, but they have not been doing comprehensive profiles on Sidy Cissoko because if I believe if there had was one, I would have been able to find it, and it was tough going out there. There are some profiles of him in French, but I can't read French.
Yeah. I did find a couple of articles about him that I thought were going to be like comprehensive profiles in French and in Spanish. And the Google translation of them, it was still pretty narrow. You know,
Yeah,
it wasn't a comprehensive, like, look at his life. And here's a little bit, like, we had some really great profiles of Donovan Clingan that we got to work with when we did our deep dive on Donovan Clingan. There were some really
totally.
good ones talking about him and his family and how he got to basketball and why basketball is important to him. CD, hate to break it to folks, we're pretty much going to be reporting on what's in his Wikipedia page and then a couple maybe other things that we found. But it is bare minimal. So if you are a Blazer Media member listening to this podcast right now, you have a fantastic opportunity to cover somebody who has not, at least for this English speaking audience, really had a chance to get to know this player. And I can tell you from the little bits that I've learned about, I'm fascinated by him and I want to know more.
Yeah. So, quick question for you, because this is something that I was not able to find. Did you find the name of his mother?
Nope,
I can't even find the name of his mother.
nope,
You didn't find his mother's name either. Okay, couldn't find the
nope.
name of his mother. I don't really know how many siblings he has. I know he has brothers.
Yeah. So complicating this thing is Chat GPT and Google results are also not helpful because I like went down this whole rabbit hole, and it was like linked from a Wikipedia article where there's another player with Senegalese heritage who also played on the G League Ignite. And I think ChatGPT may have conflated those two players because I like try not to read the ChatGPT like results that are displayed to me. Try to like scroll past them, but eventually I was like, I got to see what I can find. And when I followed it, it had clearly conflated the two players and was like reporting about CD, the information about the other guy whose name I can't remember. I'm sorry, off the top of my head. And I like had to look up and go like, are these the same player? And he has like a different name because like in his culture he's called this, but in this culture he's called that. But no, they are two completely separate players on the G League Ignite at the same team time.
It's rough out there. And as our team becomes more international, I feel like I need to become more resourceful in figuring out how to find out about their careers prior to coming to the United States. Because I'll say with Donovan, of course, we had lots of good profiles to work with about Donovan because Donovan came up through like the American college system, through a prestige basketball program in this country, like very easy to track his career because it was a very familiar track that been down many, many times. Sidy comes from, from France to Spain through Europe, like Europe, the European basketball system to the G League Ignite to the NBA. And that is a lot harder to like know what happened to him prior to arriving here. Also, he's only 21.
Mhm.
But he's like Deni, we found out like, he had been working toward a pro career in basketball in his teen years. Because in Europe there's like opportunities for them to join kind of like the lower teams within a professional organization, which isn't really that's not the route here in this country.
You did the research on Denny. Did you find that there was more research about because CD also went through that European early system early starting young, but did you find there was more information out there about Denny than there was about City?
Yes.
Hmm.
There was a
Yeah,
lot more information about it. When Deni was a top 10 pick in his draft.
that's
So he
true.
was like more highly covered than CD. CD was like 40 something when he
Hmm.
was drafted. And Deni was a top pick. Also at that point everybody was really hyping him because he was like comped to Luca.
Hmm.
And so there was a lot of focus on him. He was also one of the stars of the team that he was on,
Yeah.
both the national team and like his Euro was it Euro League
Hmm.
team. And so there was just a lot more to read about him.
Yeah.
Um, CD does not have the same route. He definitely came through European basketball, but like I'll say, I don't even really know much about the league that he came from, that he both was loaned to in his career, which we'll talk about, and also like what he like the team that he joined in his teen years and like moved up through the ranks up to the first team. Because he joined as like on the reserve team, which I would assume is like the second team on that in his pro club, and then ascended to the first team in like
Yeah.
2021.
Okay, well, let's start from the beginning with what we do know.
Okay.
He was born on April 2nd, 2004. So he's a fellow to me Aries. I was born on April 1st, and he was born on April 2nd. You and I were just looking at the roster right before we got on, and there's a bunch of guys that are within like 4 months of each other. So we
Yeah.
have Scoot and Donovan were both born in February of 2004. CD was born in April of 2004, and then Ryan was born in May of 2004. And I just think it's so interesting, like the different paths that guys go through, the amount of experience they have when they get to the league, what kind of experience would they have to the league, and these guys all took such wildly different paths. But they're all within 4 months of each other. That just fascinates me.
Yeah, and it's also it was a nice reminder for me to like check my expectations about like what we really expect from these guys. Like we think of some of these guys, I think that we expect different things from some of these guys because we've known them longer, but it doesn't make them older.
Hmm.
And like, Ryan has been here for several years, and I think a lot of people have been talking lately about what comes next for him because this is the last year, I think, of his contract. But like he's still only 21, and a lot of players are not who they're going to be, in their career at 21. And Donovan he's in his second season, but he also came from like a prestigious college team, a very prolific college team where he won, you know, national
Two
championship. Like
championships.
yeah, like
The winner. Donovan's a winner.
yes. But like, all experiences are not the same.
Hmm.
And all
Yeah.
development is not the same, and not everybody's timeline is the same. And I think about how, like, maybe it's good for me to check my expectations of who these guys should be at 21. And I
Yeah.
look back at myself at 21, and I was like, I was barely a person yet.
Yeah, and that's why I love doing these deep dives is to like do those like cross references and be like, "Oh wow, he and Ryan were picked one apart." Right? But
Hmm.
we've been seeing Ryan this whole time and CD has been elsewhere. And so like what are our expectations of someone who we've been watching for almost 4 years versus somebody who just got here? So, anyway, okay. So, born in 2004, 2004 on April 2nd. His dad was a professional basketball player, first name Yaya, and he played in the 2000 or in the 1980 Summer Olympics in Moscow for Senegal. In one the we were talking about how we can't find his mother's name, and in
Hmm.
one interview, he mentioned his parents and he said that
Hmm.
they were both from Senegal. That is the only time that he referenced parents. Everything else that he talked about was his dad. Um, so I don't
Yeah.
know. So if you are a media member who wants to do a profile on Sidy, I would be curious about to learn more about his parents and how they came to France and how long, lots of different things. I'm just interested in his parents' background as well.
Yeah, same. Also, he had like I don't know like if he ever spent time in Senegal. Like I know his we know that his dad is from Senegal. I don't know if his mom is from Senegal. I don't know if they emigrated from Senegal or if their parents emigrated from Senegal. I don't know anything about that. And it would be interesting to know like what his familial path was also to playing in Europe because it sounds like he has ties elsewhere.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah, because his dad played for the Senegalese team.
mhm.
And it's interesting. Some guys, like to go back and you are interested in like trying to play for those teams that, their parents' country of origin or the country that they or their families came from.
Mhm. I wanted to point out, so Sidi was born in Saint-Maurice, which was like a suburb of Paris, and it's like a small township. Um, and I just think that's just sort of interesting. Like I looked through like kind of the places that he'd been throughout, like since he started playing basketball, and he hasn't actually been to like very many big places.
Mm,
And so like Portland being a small franchise, I was like, oh, maybe this doesn't bother him so much, Like he's not from Paris, Paris proper. He's
gotcha.
from a township of like it's an inner suburb of Paris, but I read that it's not connected to like the Paris subway system. So if you want to go there, like it's still a little bit of a trek to get there.
Hmm.
But his township is like 14,000 people. They're called communes in France, but it's like how you would think of like a township.
Hmm.
Um, it's like 14,000 people there, and then he at 13 he moved to Spain when he in 2017 where he played for Baskonia, which is like a Europe it's a team that's in the European League in the fourth tier, and he's played in Vitoria Gasteiz Gasteiz Spain, which is in Basque country. But that place is only like 250,000 people.
Hmm.
So he still hasn't been to like big cities on
Yeah,
his
that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
yeah.
Um, yeah, a couple things there. So he was young when
Yes.
he went away, and in interviews that he gave to the Spurs organization, I think.
Hmm.
Oh, and there was another one. I read one where it was given the interview was given while he was playing for the G League Ignite, and he was talking about declaring for the draft. But he talked about how it was really hard to leave his family when he was that young because he had to, go away to enter the basketball pipeline, I guess, or for this team, and how he didn't want to go. He didn't want to be away from his family. So he's feels like really connected with his family, but they were like, if you want to be a basketball player, then you have to go. And I too noticed that it was in Basque Country, and a couple things about that I thought were interesting was that in this same interview I was just referencing, he said that when went away, he at least went to northern Spain, so he wasn't
Hmm.
like super far away from France. And I don't know if that means like how often he was able to get home, but he was
Mm.
comparing it to how far away he felt when he was in the United States playing for the G League. That he was like, I feel like I'm completely separated, but when he was just in northern Spain. Um, I think when he that one of the things that's kind of a through line, like, I want to learn more about that, is that he seems to be very into languages, partly by
Mm.
necessity. But it seems like he kind of enjoys it too. So he picked up like some Basque terms and Basque language. Um,
Hmm.
he also, okay, this is going to show my ignorance. He also had talked about how he liked to like curse people out in Portuguese, but that's completely separate language from Basque, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I
Yes.
thought it was, but I was like, do I really know that? Um, so, French speaker, moved to Spain, learned a little bit of the local terminology as well as Spanish, and became fluent in Spanish at a pretty young age. And then when he went to San Antonio, he won over all the San Antonio folks by doing
Speaking
interviews in
Spanish.
Spanish.
Yeah. I didn't know he spoke Portuguese. I didn't find that about him, but that's interesting because Tiago Splitter theoretically also speaks Portuguese.
Yeah, he said he
Um,
likes to curse people out on the on the court in Portuguese.
so he better watch his mouth
Yeah.
in front of his coach because his coach is going to know what he's saying. But I will say, like Portuguese has a lot. There's a lot of shared, because it's a Romance language. There's a lot of shared words across Spanish and Portuguese with
Mhm.
slightly different pronunciations. But there is a lot. Like I have a friend who speaks Portuguese, and I know a little bit of Spanish, and I can understand a little bit of what they say in Portuguese. So it just some of the words are different and some of the pronunciations are different, but there's some shared language there for sure, and some shared like language structure. Um, it's interesting though, because so this is a very international team now, and I'm thinking about all the different languages that could be spoken in our locker room. I think Toumani speaks French, so Sidy, Ryan, Toumani speak French. Apparently, Toumani speaks some Spanish and Portuguese, although maybe he only knows the curse words in Portuguese.
You mean
Tiago
CD?
speaks, yes, yeah, sorry, and Tiago speaks Portuguese. Um, I don't know what Denny speaks, honestly. I know he speaks Hebrew, but I don't know if he speaks any of the other languages. He did play in other areas around Europe. I don't know if he picked up any other words. I did see that he was trying to learn some Chinese so that he could communicate with Hansen. Um, so Hansen speaks Chinese. Like we have a lot of cool languages being spoken right now, and Mark Mason's got his work cut out for him because they're all getting a chance to start when everyone's injured.
Yeah. Oh, well, speaking of Chinese, in his when he was a rookie, CD did a sit down interview with Michelle Beadle, um, where they talked a little bit about language, and he was talking about the next language that he was thinking about maybe trying out was learning some Chinese.
Oh,
So
great.
if he did that, then he might know a few phrases, and if he didn't, maybe he's now even more inspired to do that.
Yeah, that's super cool. And I love that also these guys have an opportunity to like teach each other.
Hmm.
One of the things that I'll say that I think is sort of cool about, so I don't necessarily think this is the going to be the same on our basketball team, but like it's like in Korea, in K-pop, a lot of artists sometimes don't come from Korea or have to learn Korean. And so a lot of the members when they're international like teach each other. So
Mm.
like, somebody teaches somebody English, somebody teaches somebody uh Chinese, somebody teaches somebody Japanese or whatever. Like because there's actually a lot of different languages spoken even though like the industry is centered in Korea. Like not everybody necessarily comes in speaking Korean. And I'm hoping that these guys are able to do that with one another because they spend a lot of time together on the road. And also it's probably useful for them to be able to communicate in other languages just to keep it interesting when they're playing against other guys
You know
on
what?
other
I
teams.
just realized as you were talking, the we were talking earlier about the Joe Freeman article about communication,
Hmm.
and I don't recall. I'm trying to look at it really quickly right now, whether or not the fact that they speak so many different languages had anything to do with it. I don't think it probably does, but I feel like it's worth at least noting,
Hmm.
that, you know, maybe there's some just like a not like a language barrier, but the fact that there are so many languages, maybe they're still like working out what's the most effective ones to communicate with each other in. I don't know.
Yeah. And it's effortful to like so it's effortful to speak other languages. If it's not your first language, it might take a lot out of you to really think in another language or communicate in another language in a way that it wouldn't if you were in your first language. Like I was thinking about how like, you know, Denny is like really Denny and Tumani are both really quite fluent in English at this point.
Hmm.
Like they can do tons of interviews, they communicate really well in English, but that's still not what they grew up speaking.
Hmm.
Um, And I just was thinking about like what kind of energy they still have to put into that to do interviews. And I remember was it last season? I remember earlier last season, Brooke asking Deni a question in an interview, and he was like, I don't know what that word is. Like
Hmm.
he had to ask her to like explain a word to him.
Hmm.
And I was thinking about like having to do that constantly over and over and over throughout your day, missing words that you don't know. You don't always have the opportunity to get clarity. It's not always clear what's being communicated to you. Like that's effortful on taxing on your brain, in addition to having to make all these basketball decisions.
Right, right. And like the fact that many of them are fluent in multiple languages is like really awesome and like
Yeah.
super cool. I'm not fluent in any language besides English. So, that's another one of those things I would like to learn more about, like when you have very international teams, how does the communication work? Like,
Yeah.
do you come up with just hand signals for, I mean, obviously teams use hand signals, but anyway, I wish somebody who had closer access to the team could give us a little bit more insight on that.
Yeah. Or like maybe it would be interesting to see if the Spurs organization ever reported on that, because they've historically had a pretty international
Hmm.
look the last couple decades, and
Yeah.
I wonder if they've figured out good ways to do it.
Hmm.
Tiago might know.
Yeah, yeah, we there's another story for Blazer Media. What they Another thing that they asked uh CD in his like rookie interviews or younger age interviews was about French players that he watched, and of course Tony Parker, Boris Diaw,
Yeah.
having been Spurs also. It was kind of cool that he was taken by the Spurs for a bunch of reasons. So we should probably let's talk about the G League Ignite and then get to the Spurs so we can talk about that, I guess.
I want to mention one other thing about his foray in Europe before we like totally move away from the Europe stuff. So at Baskonia, which is the Spanish team that he went to at 13, and he played there until 2021 when he went on loan to another team. Uh, his his year there, he overlapped with Wade Baldwin,
Oh, that's right.
who was a former Blazer. And he actually talked about in an interview that he learned a lot watching Wade Baldwin play. And I thought that was interesting because I do remember him being here kind of, Wade Baldwin the fourth. I know that I think he's still an active player somewhere in Europe or maybe elsewhere, but he'd had a good, like longish career overseas. But I just thought that was a funny little Blazer connection there, that he actually like had met Wade Baldwin and had been on the same European club as him for a little while and learned from him.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up because I noted that too, and that made me go down the rabbit hole of remembering that Wade Baldwin's dad was a drug enforcement agency, worked for the drug enforcement agency, and his mom worked for the FBI. And then that reminded me that Jabari Walker's mom also worked for the FBI. And I still want to know the meet cute between Jabari Walker's dad, Samaki Walker, the NBA player, and Jabari Walker's mom, the FBI agent.
Right. Because Wade Baldwin's parents make some amount of sense.
Yes.
The NBA player and the FBI agent, not as much. Yeah. Anyway, it's interesting because I think City's actually had quite a few connections to like either Portland or Portland players, and it's really interesting to see you know, someone's path to actually becoming a Blazer. But like he was here in 2022 for the Nike Hoop Summit. He played here in Portland. And he played all right. He played for the like Team World or whatever, like they like divide them up into regions or whatever. He played for Team World, and that was just like 3 years ago.
Yeah, and Sean Hyken did cover kind of like some of those connections that brought him here to Portland, like
Hmm.
the with the G League Ignite and Scoot and Pooh Jeter, and there was also another assistant coach, I think, for can't remember if it was G League Ignite or maybe his European team, um,
Hmm.
that he'd had some connections with. And of course, the regular exercise is to just Google Mike Schmitz and Sidy Cissoko. And of course, Mike
Yeah,
Schmitz had early thoughts on Sidy Cissoko.
of course. I would expect nothing less.
Yeah.
Um, I was really pleased to know that he was well connected here. I think that I don't know how often that happens actually, that players end up where they end up because of their connections through other things. Like where someone can be like, "Oh, so and so's a great guy. Like I liked playing with him. He's, whatever." Like because now we have Sidy Cissoko, who had connections here before he arrived. We know that Hansen had connections with one of our players before he arrived, and some of our staff, because I believe that didn't Pooh play over
Yeah.
played
Pooh
overseas in
Jeter is
China.
like the connective tissue for this young team. He really
Yeah,
is.
yes, low key a basketball hub, that man. But it's just interesting to see because also like, we also know that Blake Wesley and CD both came from the Spurs organization. Tiago came from the Spurs organization. Like, I mean, not directly, but CD and Blake, I don't think that they overlap. Did they overlap there? I can't remember if they
I think
overlapped there.
no, I think that they did. But I don't quote me on that. We will get to that when we talk about Blake Wesley. Let's double check
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. But either way, they came from like that same system and they so when they both arrived here this season, you know, they knew each other
Hmm.
or knew of each other. So it's kind of fun. Especially considering I'm like maybe there's a great profile that could be written because we also know a bunch of guys. Not even only do we know the subject that we want the profile on, we know a bunch of guys who know about that guy because they've played with him, worked with him, practiced with him, developed with him.
Yes, and I would like to know a little bit more about his he said that he's been playing against Wembanyama since they were like 10 years old.
Yeah.
But I also want to know about with Ryan,
Hmm.
whether or not they played against each other. I think that they did, but there's not very much. Like, tell us more. There's so much more to find out. There's so many more questions that we could ask.
Yeah, and this is something where I also am trying to fill in some of my gaps in knowledge around the European basketball system because from my count, a lot of these guys did not play in the same league.
Hmm.
But there are so many leagues across Europe, and I don't know what crossplay looks like. I know that there are tiers. I'm making the assumption that the tiers of teams are similar to like European soccer, or where there's like the top tier of teams, and then there's like promotion and demotion of teams as they play. And but again, I don't know for sure. And I don't know what interplay looks like. So this is like an area of growth for me and learning more about what the European basketball pipeline might look like compared to like the more familiar American college system where we know exactly how that works.
Yeah, and now that the Blazers finally have an international scouting department, we
Hmm.
should definitely learn more about how all this works. Um, should we switch over to the G League time?
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
very curious about why he went to the G League because he was playing professionally in
Hmm.
Europe. And so like the G League is supposed or the G League Ignite was supposed to be about like getting guys used to being pros, but he already was a pro. Um so one thing that I did read in the profile that I was talking about earlier that was in French, which I Google translated, so take it for what you will. Um was that he wanted to get used to American basketball, and the
Hmm.
differences between European and American basketball. So that makes sense. So he was on the G League Ignite for a year. It was Scoot's second year,
Hmm.
and that team got a lot of attention because, of course, Scoot had gotten a lot of attention, and they played the French team with Wembanyama on it and beat them.
Hmm.
So CD was like, everybody, like, people did write about him quite a bit leading up to the draft, and it was always under the like, everybody talks about Scoot. Oh, but you got to check out this CD guy. He's really awesome. And so I just think it's funny that they ended up getting him as well on the Blazers. But during the G League Ignite year, he also got selected to go play in the Rising Stars game in the All-Star game.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And he also didn't he did something else at that All-Star weekend. What was it?
Oh, I
Oh,
don't
he was one of
remember.
the 24 players named to the G League's inaugural Next Up game because the G League played a game at
Okay.
All-Star weekend. So the G League Ignite experiment was very interesting. I felt like they were trying to do something totally different and carve this alternate path to the NBA, and a lot of guys surprisingly like took that chance. Like I feel like that's why CD came is to take that chance. And I remember I read an interview where he talked about um part of his decision to come here was also because he saw what that Dyson Daniels had made it,
Hmm.
through that route.
Hmm.
Um from like the NBA global kind of initiatives. But it's just it's very interesting because there's very obviously a hunger for another like well-paved route to the NBA that isn't through American colleges.
Mhm.
And like it just seems like right now that's still being developed. Like obviously there needs to be a stronger way, a stronger, more familiar way for like Europeans to make it to the NBA if that's where they want to play. Um, because right now it's just like who has good scouting in Europe and who is doing their due diligence and also who's willing to take a little bit of a risk because like quite frankly a lot of the times those guys are in our draft and like when you hear the analysts talk about them it's like it's clear that they don't know necessarily a ton about some of these players other than what's already been reported by like American media covering them abroad or something. And it's like it's not nearly the same way like there's not nearly the same coverage as there would be of like guys who all went to Kentucky, who all went to
Mhm.
Kansas, who all went to UConn, like
Yeah,
who
and
all went
even
to
if
North
they were only
Carolina.
there for a year, they still get lots of coverage and attention.
Yeah. I didn't realize how much I could find out about Caleb Love until I was looking at him, but it turned out plenty. There's plenty written about Caleb Love and CD, almost nothing.
Yeah.
Um, did you find anything interesting about his time at the Ignite? Because I'll say like a lot of the time, like weirdly, despite all the press of the Ignite, it's still hard to find out some of the specifics about what happened with that team.
Yeah. Well, G League like stats and stuff are pretty hard to find anyway. And because the way their season is like divided into different parts, that's hard because they like get rid of the early season stuff and start all over again in the new season. So yeah, I didn't find out very much. I just know that Scoot and Sidy and Leonard Miller were the ones that everybody talked about leading up to the draft. And there were times where Sidy was talked about as potentially like a first round pick. He didn't go first round, but there were definitely people who talked about that. But like, I mean, the G League Ignite, it shut down, and I really think personally, and knowing like only like the tiniest little bit and speaking with no authority whatsoever, I personally think it failed because there was so much focus on development, like teaching people how to be pros and not on winning. That they
Hmm.
weren't playing for anything. They were just playing to like spend their year in the G League Ignite before they could go get drafted. And,
Hmm.
maybe they learned some things about like how to take care of your body when you're on the road all of the time, but they weren't like trying to play for anything. And I think that's why these guys who are G League Ignite, like it takes them a little bit longer, I think, than expect. I think a lot of people thought that a lot of G League Ignite players were just going to step into the league and explode. Very few of them did. Most of them took a
Hmm.
few years to cook at least to get back into like really making their mark on the NBA.
Yeah, it's true. And like there was a lot of it was still like it felt like a startup, because the Ignite didn't exist that long, they weren't in existence for that long and now they're gone. Like I wonder like if they were ever given really a fair shake to like build out what they thought a successful pathway would look like because they weren't even around for like 5 years, were they?
Right. They were that was
Like,
probably about how long. And a lot of people like Scoot talks about it very, he praises his time. He thought it was great.
mhm.
But like there were, I don't want to give incorrect information, but there were years where they were like 2-34.
Yeah, they were not, yeah, because they were not a good team.
Mhm. Yeah, but they had
Um,
all these stars, but they couldn't put it together to get those wins, and I just think that's important. Um,
yeah, so they were around their official Wikipedia page says that they were founded in 2020 and they folded in 2024. That was a 4-year experiment. And I'm
right.
like, can you really expect to have like hit your stride at 4 years? I don't even know.
Especially getting started in 2020,
Yeah, right.
especially if that was one of your years.
Yeah, and that was
Okay.
actually another thing I wanted to say about CD is that like he was like right around that pandemic era, got the pandemic era like cohort of guys who like maybe their development is a little bit slower because they were trying to make it in this league at a time where the normal stuff was not happening.
Hmm. Yeah, very well could be. Another thing that somebody could dive in a little bit deeper to tell us all about. Um, Okay, so he was drafted in 2023, same year as Scoot, and he was
Hmm.
chosen one selection after Rayan Rupert, which I think is so fascinating. And of course, this was in the Wembanyama draft.
Hmm.
So the three Frenchmen there were three Frenchmen who were drafted, and two out of the three are now on the Blazers.
Yeah, that's right. And it's interesting because when I thought about it, I was like, oh, would we have drafted CD? But the draft order is as such that we had an opportunity to draft him and went with Ryan Repair.
Hmm. Yeah, that is interesting. I usually, when we do these deep dives, I type in so and so draft night and I get
Hmm.
a picture of them at their draft night party. Can't
Hmm.
find anything about it with CD. Did you happen to find out anything about his draft night experience?
I did not. I did not. And it's so funny because I know I watched that draft because I watched Ryan Repair get drafted. I was like, I must have watched him get drafted, but I don't remember anything about it.
He did talk a
I
little bit about it. I think it was in again the Michelle Beadle article or interview where he talked about after the first round he stopped watching and just watched it on his phone. Um, they asked him about like when he arrived in San Antonio, did anybody meet him at the airport? Because you know how often, after draft, everybody gets whisked away and immediately they land,
Mhm.
the next day in their new hometown. And he said, "Oh, we actually drove from Dallas." So it appears that for some reason may have spent draft night in Dallas. Um, but I didn't see any pictures. I didn't go back far very on his Instagram, so maybe he did have pictures and I just missed it and I didn't pay attention to that. Um, but yeah, very little information about that. He for most of his year in a year and a half in San Antonio, he was in sent to Austin to play with the Austin Spurs.
Mhm.
So he played with their G League team and had pretty good showing in there. Um, I did read an article about how he got injured towards the end of it,
Mhm.
and he said that he got depressed once he got the injury because he was in his apartment in Austin. He couldn't play basketball, and all he did was play video games. He said he spent way too much time doing that. It was really bad for him. It was bad for his mental health. So eventually he put the phone down and started to learn how to play the piano. And he said that's what helped him get out of his depression from not playing basketball, just give his mind something else to work on.
Another possible collab could be for Damian Lillard. Should he
Yeah.
want to feature Sidy Cissoko on the piano and Jeremy on the harp?
Mhm. I love it. And Drew can sing and play the percussion because
That's right. Yeah,
from
he
his
did
time,
percussion. Very funny. They could start an orchestra.
they could. Next Christmas, they can do a concert.
Um, I read like a little bit about his experience in the G League. It was one of the things that kind of stuck out to me was like how many years he's been in the G League because he started on the Ignite and then as soon as he was drafted, he basically spent his time in San Antonio with their G League team and now he's a two-way guy. And I'm like, so like I don't think he wasn't a two-way guy in San Antonio, was he?
I no, he had a full contract. It took him a while to sign it, so people were a little like, "What's going on with him?" But he
Yeah.
did end up with like a 3-year contract, I think.
That's what I thought too, but it was like a little weird because those second round picks sometimes they can be structured in strange
Mhm.
ways, so I wasn't totally sure because it has to be with cap space
But
for
I'm pretty
second
sure they
round
have more
picks.
options in the
Yes.
second round.
Yes. And so I wasn't totally sure, but I thought he wasn't a two-way guy. And so him being a two-way guy here, I was like, but honestly, like he got here and he was a two-way guy, but I feel like he's a two-way guy in name only because like when has he even played with the remix? And he's so obviously needed right now on the Blazers. Will he just be like another Duop Reath?
Yeah, well, the way that they talk about like that they talked about him like leading up to the draft and his skill set and who he is and who he's shown to be since he came to the NBA, even though most of the time he's been playing with the G League. He's a lanky, or he's a tall, athletic, fierce defender. Like he's all the things that the Blazers have been trying to build.
Yeah.
And like to it was a luxury to have like that deep of a roster of guys who fit that type of mold. But now that he's been in playing, I think it's really interesting because like he appears to be a wing, but I really think he is a guard. Because
Mhm.
one of his things that he's really good at is passing, and I think he has a really good awareness of what's going on in the court and knowing what to do with the ball. So it's not just like, oh, he's a wing who's a good passer. I think that he actually has guard skills. But he's been kind of cast in the role of a wing, but now he's had a chance to like show that like because when they've been playing without a point guard, he's been the point guard. And,
Mhm.
you know, for a guy who's still very young and still hasn't had a lot of NBA like experience, I think he's doing a pretty good job. And I hope it earns him like a full contract. Even if once everybody comes back, he doesn't get to play as much. I hope he shows that his value is high.
Yeah, same. And I was like looking across his G League experience, like he never really got a good shake at trying to make the Spurs team, really. And this is something that I didn't really think about until I was looking at his career through the lens of like, well, what happened in San Antonio that he didn't work out? And I was like, I think that they were rebuilding themselves. And sometimes you find yourself in a position where you only have so much capacity to develop guys, and someone who's promising but isn't at the very top of your list might accidentally get like the short end of the stick in terms of like development. He might not have had the organization prioritizing his growth
Mhm.
there because they had a bunch of other young guys that they were trying to prioritize ahead of him. So it might have been like a San Antonio's loss is our gain kind of a thing. I mean, I was thinking about Bryce McGowan's when he was lighting
As he
this up.
was lighting up the Blazers.
Yeah, but like a similar thing is that we were developing so many guys while he
Yeah.
was on the remix. It was like there's not as many opportunities for these guys to be invested in when a team is in full development mode. Some good ones slip through the cracks. I can definitely imagine on any team that's doing that.
Right. And if you look at the trades that happened that moved Sidy Cissoko on from the Spurs, he was part of the De'Aaron Fox trade. And we know the Spurs were
Yeah.
going for De'Aaron Fox. They wanted De'Aaron Fox.
Hmm.
Moving him to Sacramento, which I mean, if you're not going to play, like, if there's anywhere you're maybe going to get a chance to play,
Yeah.
if it's not as if it's not Sacramento, it could have been the team that he was later traded to, which was Washington. And surprising to me that Washington just cut him, but maybe like you're saying, is because they just didn't have a place to develop him, or I don't know, too good to play for them. I don't know, but he was traded from San Antonio to Sacramento as part of the De'Aaron trade, and then like 2 weeks later, he was
He was at the
traded
Wizards.
to the Wizards, and then they cut him.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
and
he was
that's when
waived.
he joined the Blazers. Because remember, he came last season. He came in
Yeah.
February.
Yep.
As it was a two-way player,
Two-way.
or did he just go to the
Two-way.
remix?
No, I think he was a two-way guy in February of last year.
Okay.
Um, but it was yeah, you're right. It was like he got bounced around as like a way to make the money work out or whatever in those trades and not necessarily like he was an after like the actual player becomes an afterthought in those
Mhm.
types of trades, which is not particularly fair to them, but that's just sort of how the business works. Um, but yeah, like he really didn't have an opportunity to play in very many places. And make a mark. And I will say, like, I don't think that the Spurs traded him because they like just because they thought he was good and they just didn't have they couldn't do whatever with it. Like he didn't play particularly well on the Spurs. When I looked at his stats, like he struggled shooting for the Spurs. Like I still think he's continued to work and get better since then, but the circumstances are as such that like I think that we actually really just lucked out that he's continued to grow as a player without necessarily being a part of an NBA roster. Um, and he, maybe one of those guys that's a little bit behind development timeline. I think about this all the time because we just want to get guys into the development pipeline younger, and that means that sometimes these guys aren't even fully done growing until they've been in the league for like 2 years or 3 years or something.
And he's still really young. He's still only 21.
Yeah, he's 21.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
he was drafted when he was 19, I think,
Hmm.
or 18, 18, 19.
No, he was 19, I'm pretty sure.
He was 19. Yeah, I thought he was 19. Um, so like, not everyone's on the same timeline. It's fine. You're not necessarily going to get a fully realized player that's ready to be a star in the NBA when they're 19. Sometimes they're
Hmm.
not ready to be a meaningful contributor until they're 23.
Yeah.
Dame didn't even get to us until he was like 23.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And when you look at how many also young guys that he's also playing with, you look at the guys that are around him too. And like if he was
Mhm.
playing with, everybody else was like 27, 28, 29, 30, but he's also playing alongside guys. I mean, he is playing with some of those guys, but he's also playing with some guys who are just developing. I'm very excited to see him and Scoot play together. I like cannot wait for
Yeah.
them to be reunited, given their experience together. They seemed like they were pretty close. I watched one interview that was like the two of them were interviewed after the game, and like Scoot got all the questions, and then they were like, "Okay, we're done," and he was like, "Nobody has anything from my man Sidy," and Sidy was like, "No, it's fine." But they seem like they're really close. One of the things when he arrived at the Spurs in that interview that I keep referencing, they asked him who is he looking forward to defending, and he said Scoot, amongst some other people. But he was excited to try to play against his teammate. Well, sorry, you can't guard Scoot unless it's in practice. But I'm excited to see them reunited, and I hope it actually happens. Like I hope. The
Oh
saddest
my
thing would
God.
be if Scoot comes back and then the Blazers decide they're going to move on from CD or he gets sent back down to the remix and they never get to play together.
I just can't imagine that happening. I don't want that to happen, and I can't imagine it because he's been such a fun contributor for this team, and I feel like we've really needed him.
Hmm.
And he's gotten better shooting. Like the way like when I looked at like what he was able to do with the Spurs and what he's doing here, he's shooting better. He's
Yeah.
well, one, he's getting more opportunity, right, to play like good minutes. But like, he looks promising and he's
Yeah.
playing a style of basketball that fits with what we're trying to build. I just I need you to be wrong here.
I know. I know. I always say that thing and go, why did I even put that into the universe? Um, but I think one of the things that I like about what CD has been doing is like with increased opportunity, he's still as efficient as he was before or more so. Because so often what happens is when people do get more chance, then it's like, okay, this is a little bit harder for this is a little bit too bright of a stage. And CD has not shown that. And I agree with you. He's like what the Blazers are looking for in players. He fits that archetype. I also just think he's a fun dude. Like I love his like love of languages and like how self-aware he is of like, oh, I needed to like put down the video games and start doing something else for my brain. And I think he's a super cool dude. And so I really do hope that we get to see him and I hope we get to see him and Scoot together because some of their highlights were really fun. Oh, here's my last little tidbit about CD. When CD was in the G League, he was the number 2 overall dunker in the entire league.
Ooh, we love a dunker.
Just saying.
That's great. I also think one of the things that I noticed about him, and I think about this more because I'm also a WNBA watcher, uh, he has a nose piercing and he covers it up.
I never
You
noticed
see, like
that.
he puts a little sticker over his, yeah, he wears like a sticker over his nose piercing. And I was like, is this the only nose piercing in the whole NBA? Because I don't think unless somebody just takes their jewelry out every game, like I think he might be the only one that I've seen where with the like the nose covering. Whereas in the WNBA, there's like three women on every team that have a nose piercing covered up so it doesn't get caught on anything.
Oh, we'll have to look for that. I will also say not bad fashion wise. Like he's got a good foundation. Like
Mm,
he's willing to wear stuff that like has like patterns or like, graphic tee. He's pretty interesting fashion wise. I think he's got a really really good
hmm.
possibility.
He wears sweatsuits, but he also wears hard pants from time to time.
Right. Well, and his sweatsuits are often fun.
Yeah, that's true.
They're often
I
like
uh,
got
we
patterns on them.
we bag on sweatsuits a lot, and there are a lot of great sweatsuits, but I just like need more fashion diversity in my life, is I think where I've arrived.
Hmm. Yeah.
Sidy
Especially
has a
from the
nice he
ones
has
that
a
are
nice
just
look.
yards and yards of plain color.
Yeah. Or just blazer hoodies. I'm like, I could get that in the fan shop. So yeah, he's really fun. When I like realized that he had like a nose piercing, I was like, you gotta really believe in that nose piercing for it to feel worth it to cover it up as much as you do. Because you know what I mean? You have to make sure that it's like quite protected to make sure it doesn't get ripped out of your face.
Right. Imagine if Yusuf Nurkic had a nose piercing.
Oh my God.
It would have been ripped out of his nose so many times.
Oh my God. Yes, he got hit in the face so many times. Anyway, yeah. I was wondering, I was like, maybe we'll get to see some fun jewelry from him, nose jewelry from him.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
something that we haven't gotten to see a whole lot. We've seen a lot of other jewelry on players, but not piercing jewelry. Well, I guess earrings. Guys wear earrings,
Hmm.
but not like
Yeah, I'll
face
go check that
piercings.
out.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, he's a fun addition to our team, and I have to imagine based on what everyone else, like all the other reporters have been saying, and based on what I've seen of him as a player, he really feels like a guy who's going to make this team at some point,
Hmm.
unless something weird changes.
Yeah.
If there's a roster spot available, it's hard for me to imagine.
Yeah. He has a lot of confidence too. And we talked about a lot with Caleb Love. But what I liked is one time I heard him say in an interview, I think it was on a No Ceilings interview, they asked him to describe himself and he said that he likes to play like every game is his last. And he's also numerous times just said, I just love playing. And actually, in an interview he just did recently, like maybe like yesterday, like a practice interview, he said something about just loving playing. Just love to play this game. I was like, I like that.
You love somebody who like basketball is, you know,
They
still
love to do
like
it. They just
fun.
can't imagine not doing it all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
it's good.
we managed to find stuff to talk about, but there is, let's say, a good opportunity for doing profiles on CD Cissoko. So suffices to say, we're curious, and that his story hasn't been as explored as deeply as others, and so there's a really good opportunity there for people to tell us more.
Yeah, I would love to know about more about his family. Like, I don't even know for sure how many siblings he has. I know he has some.
Yeah, and he even said in one that his older brother is a professional player.
Yeah,
And
but
there,
there's nothing about him.
right,
I don't
there
know
is
his name, so I can't.
another, yeah, there is another Sissoko who did go through, who's was born in 2000, who went through the more traditional American college route. Um, but I don't know if they're related. I have no idea, and he certainly didn't say anywhere in any of the other things that who his brother was, like what his brother's name was or anything like that. So,
I'm also curious if maybe like their names, they don't always have the same spelling of their name because I noticed that in the Wikipedia article about CD, his father's name has an H in it that
mhm.
CD's does not. And I know that's oftentimes when we translate names, like we're fitting them into it like a language that like their
Yeah,
name doesn't quite fit. But it's possible that there are multiple members of his family out there where they are spelled differently because of like that kind of
right. Or
translation
who
problem.
they're playing for. Like in America, we've Americanized it to this, but if they're playing in Spain, this is what it is. So yeah, there's he's kind of an international man of mystery, but exciting to watch, fun to watch, and I like we've just said, hope he earns a full-time contract.
Yeah, same. I did find another Sissoko that I've determined was not related to him, but it took me a while to determine that he wasn't. Uh, his name was Maddie Sissoko, and it's spelled with an S.
Okay.
It's
Is that the
Sissoko with a like that starts with an S.
Was he the basketball player
Yes.
who played for like not
Michigan
long,
State.
long,
He
okay.
played for Michigan. This guy played for Michigan State, and I was trying to figure out if this he was related to CD because he was like 4 years older than CD, and I was like, it could be this could be his older brother,
Yeah.
but like his route didn't really make sense that he would be his brother because he came through Mali.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I international man of mystery.
Yes. But I would love to know more. And if anybody else out there could tell us more about his other his also his family's like relationship to basketball, because clearly he has multiple family members involved in basketball and how that impacted his game.
They should just let us interview him.
I know. I was like, you don't understand. We could tell such a great story about him if we could just talk to him about what his life has been like up to basketball and how it intersects with all the other parts of who he is. I'm just telling you. Very interesting players right now. I'm
Hmm.
like, I wish we could learn more about them and it was easier to learn more about them.
Hmm. For sure. Okay, well, we ended up finding plenty of things to talk about him, even though we couldn't find that much information. We should probably wrap it up. Do you have anything else you want to say about CD before we move on to takes?
No, I'll just say I hope that he stays on this team. I hope that he gets his full NBA contract here, and I am excited to continue to watch him grow.
Yeah.
Tara, it's December 14th. It's right around 1 o'clock. What's your take today?
Okay, I have a completely non-basketball take. This is for fellow Bravo fans. Um, I think that, and this is not going to make any sense to you at all, Rose, so I apologize. But for the Bravo fans out there, they will get it. I think they need to put Amanda on Real Housewives of New Jersey. Look, Amanda and Kyle, we've watched them circling the drain for years and years and years. Now it seems like there might actually be some teeth to their separation. Last year, maybe a couple years ago, very famously, Paige made a very impassioned speech about how Kyle just needed to buy that girl her house in New Jersey and let her drink Diet Coke by the pool. That has not happened, but I think this is the time that it should happen. Move Amanda, let her have her dream of having her house in New Jersey, drinking Cokes by the pool, and put her on Real Housewives of New Jersey. They're recasting New Jersey right now. Let Amanda stand on her own, and we can keep Kyle in the spinoff in the city. Like, nobody wants Kyle like off of the air. Well, maybe some people do, but Kyle's very entertaining television. So, like, keep him, but give Amanda and let her fly on her own. And I think that she will like be an amazing, beautiful swan, and we'll all be like, that was brilliant. So please, Bravo, put Amanda Batula on Real Housewives of New Jersey.
Where is she now?
So Amanda and Kyle are married and they are on Summer House. And Summer House is about ready to go
Okay.
through a transition where the OGs of Summer House are going to start a new series called In the City. And instead of being about their weekend life in the Summer House, it's going to be about their life during the week in the city. But Amanda
In the
and
city meaning New
Kyle,
York?
yeah, yeah. Amanda and Kyle have been married for a long time, but they're very different. They have vastly different lives and interests, and there's always been speculation that they're splitting up. So I just think if that happens, like let Amanda has always sort of been like Kyle's always been like the big star of the show, and Amanda is like so great, but this Kyle guy takes up so much space that I think if she had her own separate show to be on, I think she would be really fantastic.
Interesting. Okay.
I'm sure
Um,
you're very interested.
well, no, I mean, I just like I didn't it wasn't until this very moment that I realized that you could be moved from one show, one Bravo show to another, and I'm like, it's not someone like the NBA.
No, it's
They're not
it's very much like it. And I talk about it like it's a sport. Like I watch it like it's a sport. Like who had the best episode? Like who won the episode? Like who made mistakes? Like so when I watch it like that, I don't know. That's how I watch it and it's really fun. And yeah, people do, it's not like it doesn't happen all the time, but it certainly does happen that they may move from one franchise to the other.
okay. So we
Okay.
want Amanda to move from Summer House to the Real Housewives of New Jersey because they're recasting that. They're in a rebuild?
They're yes, they're rebuilding. So
Okay.
they are probably going to hold on to a couple of their like OG players who like, but
Okay.
we're not sure which ones. We're not sure which ones are like protected and maybe in an expansion, let's just say.
Okay.
Um, but I
And
think
they might
Amanda
bring
would be
in
a
new
really good
blood.
fit.
They might bring in new blood where like they're like people who haven't been on any of the Real Housewives or
Yes,
other Bravo shows.
right. But Amanda is
Okay.
somebody who's still young, and so they could like really build around her.
So she's not necessarily like a tent pole like some of the people who are going to be like sticking around that that franchise for a while, but she's maybe like an important role player that could help bring in some of the new blood as well.
Well, see, I think if she stays on in the city, she wouldn't be a tent pole, but I think she could move to Real Housewives of New Jersey and really break out and blossom into a new role where she has a bigger role and she's a more important part of the franchise than she is currently on Summer House.
Okay. Well, watch out, Bravo fans. Maybe sixth man of the year Amanda is coming to Real Housewives of New Jersey.
Yes. I love it. Awesome.
Okay,
One of these
my
days you're
my
going to be like, I just admitted I just watched Southern Charm. What did I just do? Anyway, Rose, what's your take?
so my take is basketball related, kind of. I was this leading up to this weekend, I knew that like there wasn't going to be as much basketball for me to watch because it was like cup time and I don't get Amazon Prime. And I was like, actually, like I see like like I like look into Blue Sky, people are trying to figure out like what's going on with the games for cup games and yada yada yada. And I was like, I'm so glad I don't have Prime. And I was like, so my take this week is this. I'm so glad the Blazers didn't make the in-season tournament because then I wouldn't be trying to figure out how I can watch these prime games and I just got some hours back in my life instead. Like I don't need to watch the prime games. I don't need to watch the cup games. My team's not in it. I mean, I heard that like, some fun stuff happened and everybody had a good time, but also I don't need that in my life. I just enjoy the extra time to myself. Not trying to figure out whether I should go to a bar to watch Amazon Prime.
Yeah, that's the worst part is like, yeah, do I have to actually pay money to go support somebody who's paying money for Prime? Ugh.
And I don't drink anymore. So what am I going to do? Go to a bar and be like, I'm here to drink a Diet Coke for 3 hours. Sorry, you're not going to make any money off me.
Welcome to my life, Rose. That's when you get excited that they actually have mocktails now, because then at least you don't, at least you feel like you're not just like the person who's like, can I have an iced tea? Yeah, I know it's 10 o'clock at night. Now it's like we can at least get mocktails and like feel like we're part of something. I love that take. I feel like it's a little bit of a like, had the Blazers been in the tournament, we may have been looking at flights to Las Vegas. But you know what? Since they're not, fine. We didn't want it anyway.
No, you know what? I got the gift of time back
Yes.
for the Blazers not making the in-season tournament. Should they have made it? I that would have been a lovely thing to like go down that thought process as well, and I'm sure I would find great things about it. But because I that wasn't the path that they were on, I see the positives about them not making the in-season tournament, and I'm thrilled to have those hours back. I'm thrilled to not have Prime. I'm thrilled to not have to worry about any of that. And I'm like, sure, I missed a couple of games of basketball and some of you all had fun, but they weren't my team. So like enjoy it. I'm out here, doing whatever, folding laundry, getting
That was
ready for
so
the
nice
week.
of them to think of us.
I know. I'm better prepared today for tomorrow, for Monday, because I had all this extra time over the weekend. I mean, not really, but theoretically I did. I had all this extra time to like not watch basketball and do other stuff. So,
I love it. That sounds
yeah.
good.
Yep.
Well, we managed to find plenty to talk about, even in a couple weeks where we haven't had a ton of basketball. But it was, as always, great to talk to you about all of this. So fun to learn more about CD. Love your take, and we've got uh, we have a year end for listeners. We have a year end kind of special kind of thing we want to do planned, which is we want to know what your takes are. So if you've made it all the way to the end of this podcast, please, Blue Sky, Instagram now, you can tell us what your takes are. And again, same rules that we follow. It doesn't have to be about basketball. Just what's something that has just been burning inside you that you want to share with the other takers out there. So send them to us, and before the end of the year, we'll have an episode where we read them.
And I'm going to tell you that I will go out of my way to text my dad and get my dad's take because my dad has wonderful basketball takes. We don't always agree about basketball, but I always appreciate where he's coming from because sometimes it's a wild place. Dad, I love you. Thank you for listening to this podcast.
And we need your daughter's takes as well, because she has great takes.
Yeah, like I have Amazon Prime.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening to us. You can find me at TCB Biggs on Blue Sky, and you can find Rose at Rose L. Harding. You can find the podcast at We Have a Take. Thank you so much for listening, and everybody, go Blazers.